Welcome to the bold analysis. The administration has been overwhelmed by a pressure from giant Kenyan creditor. We have our main creditor so far, and we owe that creditor billions of shillings. So when a decision was made, a resolution was made to revert Naivasha port operations back to Mombasa, there were two issues that were at the stake. The first issue was on how reduction on SGR revenue stream, which was the source of income for for the government to repay the Chinese loan. That was number one. The other aspect was that traders in Mombasa, or rather importers, who are being coerced to use the SGR to transport their goods through the SGR to maybe from Mombasa to Nairobi or to other parts of the country, and even in Uganda and Sudan, were at liberty then to use every means, because it only meant that clearance of the cargo had been reverted back to Mombasa. And then, that is what sparked an uproar. And I remember us analyzing, personally me analyzing, that we had made a big blunder because we needed to take care that the model that was used to maximize the potential of Naivasha port as an extension of the Mombasa port was to help us to make sure that we can prepay all that. And I want to play for you a clip by Association of Sudanese Transporters, who are calling on government to make sure that they implement the cabinet directive that all the cargo to be cleared in the Mombasa port. That was after that reversal was made, and I will tell you why the traders wanted it. I've really been covering this issue, and so I'll give you a grip. But for now, I want you to listen to what this gentleman is saying.
There's an outcry from the people of Southern Sudan and people of Mombasa as well, because the livelihood of people of Mombasa come from this port. If you take business away from the people of Mombasa, how do you expect them to live? This is my question. One, the directive of His Excellency, President RUTO, is very clear. The President of the Republic directive is very clear during the inauguration. All our presidents were there. All cargoes, no exception, revert to Mombasa for handling and clearance. The same position from our government of South Sudan. All cargoes should revert to Mombasa for handling and clearing. We are not against SGR. Number two, as a business community from the region, EAC, Uganda, Rwanda, whom their cargoes are not being touched even, the cargo remain here, is only South Sudan cargo is being targeted. We said, why are you targeting our cargo? One, we are asking the KPA to respect this directive and please let our cargo come back, because our people are suffering back at home. People are suffering. Things are becoming very expensive in the market because they're associated with import and export. You don't force the traders to use one means of transportation. And that's what we told the old regime under Macharia. You don't make SGR to kill the roads, because Mama Boga take the kid to school using those lorries. If you lazimisha kila kitu aenda na SGR, now Mama Lori taenda wapi? Now Mama Boga taenda wapi? So what we are saying, please respect the government directive and let our cargo come back to Mombasa, as it has been expressed by His Excellency Dr. William RUTO and our leadership as well. Said our cargo should come back. All the documents are here with me, not Bavel from our embassy. But they were not honored by the Foreign Minister of Transport. He said on these letters. Why? Why are you forcing South Sudan? People of Kenya have helped us during our struggle for independence, and now we still need the people of Kenya and the government of Kenya to help us. If we start now exploiting our cargo, in fact, this is a more dangerous thing.
So let me tell you what I've realized. for the few people I've been talking to and been analyzing this issue, when clearance, many people want the clearance to be done in Mombasa. Remember, these agencies are actually private companies, so they're at liberty to have offices everywhere. But there is a bit of collusion and picky-ponky games that can be played through the customs offices in Mombasa compared to when you're clearing in Nairobi Inland Depot or Naivasha. Because in Naivasha, Nairobi, there is no clogging, as in there is not a lot of the work. And so each person will be served, and there are few loopholes even to evade tax. But in Mombasa, veteran transporters and exporters and importers already have designed networks and dubious means to evade the taxpayer. So that's why you could see that even the Sudanese guys were pushing to make sure that clearance is done in Mombasa. Now, this is what has happened. When the president traveled, the president was in Juba last weekend, just this weekend, apart from attending the parliamentary games that was going on there, he was also in his first official visit to the South Sudan to meet Salva Kiir. And he made a statement that many people did not pay attention to, saying something about Naivasha port. You should listen to it.
We have agreed that any policy changes in Kenya would affect the trade situation, especially of commodities that pass through the port of Mombasa. And I have confirmed to you, Mr. President, the government of South Sudan, the business community in South Sudan, that the government of Kenya has now clarified our position that goods out of the port of Mombasa can be cleared either in Mombasa, in Nairobi, or Naivasha. There are no restrictions on your business people and your traders on where they clear goods. Contrary to the situation that existed before, we have realigned our position so that the complaints that the business community and traders had before, we have now cleared. I have also informed President Salva Kiir that Kenya is also going to make available land in Mombasa for South Sudan to have a dry port so that we can facilitate.
And apart from, now if you listen to that, he's saying that now the importers are at liberty to transport, to clear goods, not necessarily in Mombasa, but even in Naivasha and Nairobi. Let me tell you, this is a departure from the previous position that everything had to revert back to Mombasa. If you listen, refer to the clip that I played for you first. And now I want you to look at this. This video. It's showing the placard. If you read that placard, it's reading that let all the operations revert back to Mombasa. They were actually pushing for that, for everything to go back to Mombasa. And I can tell you that the decision to revert the port back to Mombasa, I maintained the position that it was rushed, not well thought out, and within a couple of few days, reality had caught up with us, and the administration had to design other ways. From what I am seeing here, William Ruto called himself for a meeting, and with the stakeholders, then he realized the necessity to make sure that Naivasha dry port is not killed. Just a very interesting one. Huh? Why do we have this obsession of giving countries places for building dry ports? Around Naivasha, we were told, not even we were told, it's in the public domain, that former President Uhuru Kenyatta donated some land to Uganda so that they can establish a dry port around Naivasha there. I don't know what's the plan so far. Now, also, President Ruto in Juba is offering land in Mombasa for South Sudan also to establish a port. Do you know that Mombasa port is fourth largest port in Africa, after that of Egypt, South Sudan, and the two in South Africa. There are two ports in South Africa, Egypt, then Mombasa port is number 3. And we've realized that other countries like Sudan, not even Sudan, Uganda and Rwanda and some countries, they're even opting to use the Tanzanian port, or rather, I think it's the Dar es Salaam port, instead of using the Mombasa port. So it is a property that must be well guarded. Now, I want to tell you 3 things that could have played out in this port issue. Before we look at that, kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, and like our video. I want to say thank you very much for those who've been supporting us, and I don't take it for granted. We're almost clocking. By the way, for many people, this is the day that I opened this channel, even though I started doing analysis in January, but I opened it somewhere in December 3rd. Today is 5th year, December 3rd. So I don't take it for granted. Asanteni sana. Ile mmenifanyia pia mfanyie mtu mwingine. And that, 3 things. Decision to revert the port to Mombasa had a short-term goal, maybe to cut or rather to limit some individual interests. You know, let me tell you this. There was a story that was reported some time back, I think like 2 weeks ago, that there were companies that were given some tenders, and these companies had exclusive rights to transport goods through the SGR, but at some subsidized tariff, at a very well negotiated tariff. And whether and the only way to have cut it is to make sure that the port in Naivasha is killed, because they were transporting to Mombasa, then from Mombasa to the other destination. And that did not, the truth of the matter here is, when this administration settled in, they had a lot of stuff in the table. They had good intentions on the table, and they had some misguided intentions. And there was a plan not to have that continuity. I listened to Jeremiah Ken saying we campaign on continuity. They did not want to embrace continuity. And that is why, from the very day that Waziri Murkomen gave us the SGR document, it ended there. It ended there. And I can tell you the other reason why Ruto had gone back to the drawing board to relook this issue, which is in a very good note, because at the end of the day, our position for people who are questioning was that we did not pursue it in terms of even the economic value, but we were also looking for the people, the investors, and people that had settled in Naivasha. The people who had bought land, they started building some houses, and a small town had started developing there compared to the already established port in Mombasa, and these people had lost a livelihood. So, I want to look at it. China might have knocked on the door. That, look here, our loan has not been paid, and there is, maybe even if it is not KPA, but maybe some assets, Kenya might have given a collateral. The truth, the bottom line here is, even if it is not KPA or whatever, it's not an asset, but Kenya might have given a collateral. So the collateral that we used to get the SGR loan was at risk. And it could also be in the spirit of making sure that we service our loan. Lastly, our president was in Mombasa 2 weeks ago and spent the weekend there after opening the Kwale Devki Steel plant, and was also in the port. I want to believe that maybe in his engagement with stakeholders, one thing that President Ruto have, and if you have the luxury of being talking to people around him, I have some few people in my circle who had the luxury of working with him, and they will actually tell you that President Ruto is a man who listens, even if he's not going to buy your idea, but he will give you time to listen. He will listen to it. The only difference is that utamwambia, umconvince, but when he walks out, make another decision. But as a president, you expect different layers of making that decision. So, as president makes, being a person that could also have engaged the stakeholders, he might have realized that, look here, apart from economic value of us, Mombasa Port helping us pay the SGR loan, it's also an extension of the Mombasa Port. And so we're making it bigger. And that has been my position, that concentration of everything in Mombasa, Maize was being clogging, just like what's happening in the health sector, where President Uhuru Kenyatta invested in decongesting KNH by establishing the other hospitals. So by an extension of the Naivasha port, we were actually decongesting Mombasa.